is performing these lists of instructions. And basically, in computer programming, the thing the individual little things that are going on inside the computer to perform these lists of instructions are called threads. And so it's these threads that are processing all these instructions. Let's see. Yeah, so, sorry, I'm checking my notes here. Sort of a big topic. So as a programmer, it's sort of possible to know, it's sort of possible to create a program and have it launch up without knowing anything about these threads going on. You can do a lot of programming. Like if you think about a program that just, you bring up a screen and it's got some data entry stuff, and you type in some information and you hit save, it's highly possible that the programmer who did that didn't need to know anything about threading at all. And I'll show you just how easy that is to do. And I'll do it with a Windows program. Now, when you guys have been doing Android stuff, we've been using Eclipse, and Eclipse is a programming environment, or a programming tool, as I've explained before. There's another one called Visual Studio, and that's sort of a Microsoft-specific programming environment. And since I'm on a Windows machine, it's actually one of my best choices for showing you how you might create a computer program without knowing anything about threads whatsoever, and just immediately do something that it could potentially do something. So if you look, I already have Visual Studio started up, and I said new, I think I said new application. And so I go in here and I say I want to create a Windows Forms application. And a Windows Forms application is really what you think of as, probably if you're a Windows user, it's what you think of as a program. There's lots of things that are going on in the background all the time, and probably that's where most of the coding is actually done in the world. But if you think about a computer program, this is probably what you're going to imagine. So I'm going to say my class program. I'm going to say OK, and it's going to draw me a screen basically, and there it is right there. So now I want to, oh gosh, my computer's slow with this screen capture stuff, I guess. I want to create a button, and I want to create a label, and I'm going to call this label, I'm going to give it a name, and because that's how I'm going to refer to it when I use it in code, I'm going to say label example, or I'm going to call it label example, and I'm going to call this button example. So, and then just for fun, I'm going to go up here, and you got this thing up here, and this always used to impress me when I first saw somebody make a program for the first time, because just these things that you see, like you've seen them all your life, but you don't really think about how they're constructed, I guess. So just say, this is my header. Maybe this won't impress kids nowadays, I have no idea. But anyway, here we go. We got my header up here, we got the little Windows thing, we got a button, and all I need to do to write some code to operate here is click on this button, and it'll take me back to some code, and I will say I want to change what the label says. So I'm going to say label example dot text, and text is just it's a property of that label. And the label is just something you use to write something to the screen, and clearly that's what I'm doing here, or that's what it just basically said when I pulled it out of here. So now I've got this label, and I can say label text equals, yo yo yo, and there we go. It knows no errors. It's really happy. And now I have got this program, and I'm going to hit play, just like we've been doing in Eclipse with our Android application. And it's going to actually, create a program, and there it is, kind of running all on its own. And so I hit button 1, and now it says yo yo yo. And so it's just, that is all it takes to write programs, and not just in Windows, which I'm showing you here in Visual Studio. There's similar tools in Java that we can do with Eclipse, or and similar tools on the Macintosh in a program called Xcode that allows you to code for the Mac. And there are lots of other coding tools too, but in essence, this is programming for a lot of people. And like I said, I didn't need to know a darn thing about threading in order to make that happen. If you look through all this code here, you're going to see a bunch of stuff that isn't going to probably make much sense to you, but you're not going to see, well, actually, application run in a very sort of less direct kind of way. I didn't have to write any of this code, and I didn't actually need to look at here, but here's a thread. And here's a run statement. So there is actually threading going on in sort of the background. But to do what I did here, I didn't need to know any of that. It just kind of did the work for me. And so whenever you start a program, there's usually an invisible thread that's running, or invisible to you. And when we've been doing the Android stuff so far, when you guys have done your drawing, and brought up the screen and drew the little guy. Ignore that the foot's moving, because that's not part of this, but or what I'm trying to explain. You don't need to know anything about you haven't needed to know anything about threads in order to make that happen. Okay, so how many minutes are we into this now? Well, I don't want. Who knows? Okay, so moving right along. I've kind of already said this. I'm looking at notes here. I've kind of already said this, but when you're doing game programming, knowing about threading is quite a bit more important, because games typically have a lot going on. You've got something that is changing the state of where this leg is when it's drawing it, and making it move up and down, and so you basically need to create your own threads in order to do something like that. And in a more sophisticated game, like I mentioned before, let's say you had a race car game, you might be trying to spit graphics to the screen that really fast, that show that the car is moving, through streets, or some 3D map is being progressed through, and you might have other cars on the road with you, and they're trying to knock you off the road. Well, it's actually a thread that's going, several probably threads depending on how the game is written, and there's probably several threads going on. One drawing stuff to the screen, and maybe several others that are sort of controlling the actions based on code that that the programmer's written, controlling the actions of these different drivers, and making them try to do things. And so when you're writing a game, you've got to basically know threading. And let's see, I've drawn some other examples that should carry us along. Okay. So this is sort of back to the Android example of doing this, and that's kind of where I want to take this particular lesson. By the end of this, I will show you how a how we basically create a thread that does something and draws something to the screen over and over again. And on Android, and this should